Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Barefoot Gen 2. Now, I know this box set says Barefoot Gen, but those of you who have watched my previous review of Barefoot Gen will know that this box set contains both Barefoot Gen and its sequel, Barefoot Gen 2. And speaking of the original movie, I think it's important to state that if you have not seen Barefoot Gen, stop watching now. This review will contain spoilers for the events of the first film, in particular who survived the events of the first film. And so I think it's important that if you have not watched that movie, stop watching and go watch that movie first, and then come back when you've actually seen Barefoot Gen. So let's get started off with the story of Barefoot Gen 2. Well, what is Barefoot Gen 2 about? It is set 3 years after the first film, which was when the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. And we see Gen, along with his newfound adopted brother Ryuta, living with their mother and just trying to make ends meet. We can see that society in general is trying to recover, to put the events of the past behind them. Now it's very much a case of looking for food, trying to earn money, just trying to survive in this harsh environment. But the real impetus for the story is that Gen comes across some other kids of about the same age and begins to become friends with them. And that's how the story begins. And to be fair, it is quite an enjoyable story, giving us some information on what life was like after the dropping of the atomic bomb, which is certainly something that we don't hear about. But I do think it is fair to say that the events of this movie in particular feel a little less important than the events of the first film, where they were in the thick of the aftermaths of the dropping of the atomic bomb and their struggle for survival and the impact that it had on the population. This film doesn't quite have that same punch. Now, that's not to take away from the fact that this is a very interesting movie to watch. It's enjoyable, there's some good moments of humor, and it does give us a nice amount of information about what life was like at the time. So from that perspective, it is well worth watching. Just don't expect the same kind of gut punch that the first film had. With regards to the animation, now the animation for this film was done by Madhouse, just like the first film. And it's interesting to notice there's a bit of a slight stylistic change in this film. It's become a little more detailed, a little more realistic, quite like a lot of the later Madhouse productions. And admittedly, it takes a bit of getting used to. In particular, something that I find quite difficult to wrap my head around is the visual change of Gen himself. If you take a look at how he looks in this film, and then you compare it to how he looks in the original film, you can see that there is quite a change in his character design, and admittedly, yes, he has grown 3 years older, but still I found that character design change to be a little on the jarring side. But overall, the animation itself is, from a technical perspective, better than the first film. Again, it doesn't really have too much of a showcase in contrast to the first film. The first film, of course, had the big showcase of the atomic bomb dropping and the way the animation was done for that sequence. In this film, it's a lot more subtle. I do know that a lot of people do consider this movie superior to the original in terms of animation. But I think, to me, it seems a little more on the generic side, and it doesn't stand out as much as the original film. So while I do commend the fact that from a technical perspective it is improved, the animation is more fluid and more clean, I do find myself kind of preferring the visual look and style of the original film. With regards to the music for this film is, as you might expect, a little bit more on the upbeat side compared to the original movie, simply because of the fact that this is Gen and his adopted brother just trying to make it in life, and they kind of greet a lot of aspects of their life that many other people would find very difficult with a bit of humor. They kind of take it on the chin. And the music does help to convey that. Now, that's not to say there's a lot of sadness in this film, and the music definitely does work for those sad sequences. So overall, I think the music is still pretty good. I quite liked the soundtrack. With regards to the voice cast, there is no English dub produced for this film, so I had to watch in Japanese, but that's fine because the Japanese cast does a good job. Everyone who survived the events of the first film reprised their roles. They give some very nice performances here, and the new cast members also give some great performances as well. Overall, I was quite pleased with the performances, so it doesn't hurt too much the fact that there is no English dub with this particular release. I think the Japanese dub is quite good. With regards to how it was released, now, in the UK and Ireland, what we got was this box set right here, which simply pretty much contains Barefoot Gen and Barefoot Gen 2. It does have some trailers, but you know, that isn't much of an extra. The picture quality is fine, the audio quality is fine, so overall it's a fine enough release. But if I had to recommend an edition, I would definitely recommend Discotek Media's release of Barefoot Gen. For one, it's available in the Blu-ray format, so the high definition will really let the animation shine. Overall, I would definitely recommend that if you have the choice, that you would pick up the Discotek Blu-ray release. But if you find yourself picking up this box set, you know, it's perfectly serviceable. So overall, what are my thoughts on Barefoot Gen 2? Barefoot Gen 2 is a very interesting movie and certainly enjoyable, but I find myself preferring the first film personally, just because the first film has a bit more of a gut punch to it, and also I kind of like the animation style of the first film a bit more than this, even though the animation is, from a technical perspective, better in the second film. But I definitely think that if you watch the first film, and particularly given the fact that whether you pick up the Discotek release or this release, you will be getting both films anyway, I definitely do think that it is worth checking out Barefoot Gen 2, seeing how the characters have grown up, what life is like after the bomb, and the hardships that they have to face. So overall, it's a good film, just not quite as good as the first one. So that was my review of Barefoot Gen 2. Let me know your thoughts on Barefoot Gen 2 if you have seen it. Let me know your thoughts on how it compares to the first one for you. And of course, if you have any additional information on Barefoot Gen as a whole, certainly let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.